What if everything you believed was a lie? What if your entire life had been built on secrets? Today, I'll take you on a journey of one man who lost everything he thought was real, only to find something greater. A story of betrayal, mystery, and a quest to find a place called home. This isn't just a story. It's an experience. So put on your headphones, and listen closely, because by the end, you may start to wonder about your own story. Part 1. The Awakening. The life that wasn't. T. Elliott Vale had always thought his life was ordinary. Predictable. Safe. He lived in a small, quiet apartment on the 19th floor of an aging tower, just outside the heart of the city. The hum of neon signs blinked outside his window at night, and the distant sound of subway trains was a constant reminder that the world moved, even when he did not. He worked in the National Archives, surrounded by dust, silence, and old secrets that no one cared about anymore. Scrolls, maps, histories, stories long forgotten. He spent his days filing away pieces of dead civilizations, and his nights alone with books and cold dinners. People barely noticed him. Not at the coffee shop. Not on the subway. And certainly not at the library. He had no family left, and no friends he spoke to regularly, and for the longest time, he was okay with that, until the letter came. It was raining that evening. Heavy rain, the kind that drenched through your coat and soaked your shoes in seconds. He was taking a shortcut through District 11, an alley where streetlights flickered and the smell of rust and oil was thick in the air. That's when he saw an envelope, lying there, untouched by rain. As if the ground refused to let it get wet. Curious, he knelt down. His name was on it, Elliott Vale. The handwriting was elegant. Old. Like something from another time. He stood there, staring at it for what felt like minutes, the rain pounding on his shoulders. Then he slid his thumb under the seal, red wax stamped with a symbol he didn't recognize, and opened it. There were just a few words: "You are not who you think you are. Come to the address below at midnight. Don't be late." No signature. No explanation. Just coordinates that pointed to a place deep within the old quarter, and something inside him, a part he'd long silenced, stirred. The doorway to something else. At 11:57 p.m., Elliott stood in front of an old wooden door. It was carved with symbols that felt familiar but made no sense. A brass lion knocker glared at him as if daring him to turn back. He knocked. Once the door opened on its own, inside was darkness. The smell of burning wood and old books filled the air. Candles flickered to life as he stepped forward. His pulse pounded in his ears. "You're late," a voice said. A figure stepped from the shadows. An old man. Eyes sharp, like he could see through Elliott's soul. "Do you want to know who you are?" the man asked. Elliott hesitated, then nodded. The old man handed him a leather-bound book. Its cover was cracked and worn, the pages fragile. Inside, names, maps, drawings, and a family tree. His name was there. Connected to a line he didn't recognize. Connected to a house, far from anything in this world. "You were taken from them," the man said softly. "Hidden to keep you alive." "From who?" Elliott whispered. "The ones who burned your world," the man replied. "They're looking for you. Right now." As if on cue, a crash echoed through the building. The old man's face darkened. "We have to go," he said, and then they ran. Part 2. Descent into truth. The flight from the known world. They ran through back alleys, twisting stairwells, and tunnels that Elliott never knew existed. Shadows chased them, silent figures, faceless, their eyes burning like coal. But the old man, who called himself Taran, knew every turn. They ducked through an ancient door, slid down rusted ladders, and emerged into a cavern lit by strange, floating lights. "This is where it begins," Taran said, awakening the memory. In the days that followed, Elliott learned the truth. He was not from Earth. He was Valen, an ancient bloodline from a realm hidden beyond time. His people were scholars, healers, dreamers, and rulers, but they had been destroyed. Hunted by a dark order known as the Voruan. His parents had sent him away when he was a child, erasing his memories to protect him, but now, the Voruan had found him. And they wanted to finish what they started. You are the last heir, Terran told him. And we need you to come home. But Elliot was broken. I'm not a leader, he argued. I file books. I live in silence. I'm not who you think I am. You are exactly who we need, Terran said quietly. The journey back they traveled for weeks. Across lands untouched by human feet. Through forests where trees whispered his name. Across mountains where stars fell like rain. Elliot's memories returned in pieces. A mother's song. A father's warm hands lifting him to see the stars. A sister's laughter, and then the screams. The flames. The shadows. He cried the night he remembered it all. Terran sat silently beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You survived, Terran said. You carry them with you. Elliot rose the next morning changed. Part 3, The Return and the Choice. The ruins of his people. They reached the gates of Velaris. What had once been a shining city was now broken stone and ash, but people remained. Survivors. Elders. Children who had never known peace. When they saw Elliot, they knelt. You are our last hope, they said. Elliot didn't feel worthy. But he stood before them. I will fight, he promised. Not because I am ready. But because you deserve more than this. And they followed him. The battle for Velaris. The Voruan came in darkness, their weapons black as the void between stars. But Elliot was no longer alone. He led his people in battle. He fought not just with sword and shield but with the wisdom of his past life and the strength he found in his new one. They fought for days, and when the sun finally rose, they stood victorious. Elliot stood over the fallen leader of the Voruan and made a choice. He spared him, because the cycle had to end. Rebuilding home. Years passed. Elliot rebuilt Velaris. Stone by stone. Heart by heart. He sat with children and told them stories of the stars. He stood beside warriors and helped them plant gardens, and one night, he climbed to the highest tower. He looked out over the sea of stars, and whispered, I am home. Home isn't a place. It isn't even a family. It's a choice. Elliot Vale chose to return. He chose to stand for something greater than himself. And because of that, his people found hope again. What will you choose? If this story touched you, let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more journeys like Elliot's, stories about finding yourself, about standing tall even when the world tries to break you, subscribe. Until next time, stay curious.